drunk?
I'm not thinking straight. Why did I drink that wine cooler last month?
Dinner's ready, dinner's ready.
Saved by the bell from eternity in hell.
Worst episode ever.
60 minutes are on the clock, and straight out of HAWUSE Studios, this is Worst Episode Ever. My name is Dan.
My name is Jack, and we're talking everything Simpsons, and maybe also doing horrible impressions and telling really long, pointless stories about our childhood.
It might happen, and today's topic is going to be Season 21's episode, The Devil Wears Nada. But first, Jack, why are we doing this?
This is, for those of you who don't listen to 90s Percentile, this is the framework. This is basically how we do our 90s episode.
Yes.
We started off like that. We do it 60 minutes, real time, quote unquote, live to card.
Right. No edits.
Cut none of this is our catchphrase on that show.
Yeah.
So if you are new to this, if you don't listen to 90s Percentile, we're kind of just doing this as a. For one, it's a way for you guys to just get a feel, and maybe you should check out our show.
Yeah.
Two, we're recording 3 episodes today, and we want to speed things up.
It's a social experiment for us to see if we can do this episode in 60 minutes. So today we're going to be doing an episode from Season 21. It's called The Devil Wears Nada. Jack, have you seen this one?
I don't think
Prior to
I don't think so.
today.
Maybe, but it certainly did not leave an impression. I don't remember it.
Right. So this episode was suggested by Sam Houseman. So thank you, Sam. And
Thank you,
also
Sammy House. I'm assuming that's what his friends call him.
Big House. Sammy House. They will now, Sam. And also
Unless his family was killed in a house explosion or something.
They call him Old Dead Family. Sam, if your family was dead,
ODF.
I'm sorry. And it was also suggested by @TheRealEtippy. So thank you.
Tippy.
They call him House, ironically. It's weird. He's a really big fan of House.
Thank you to both.
Or she. So anyway,
It's a good show.
This is normally
It's
the
like
time
Sherlock Holmes,
where
but
we
House.
I get it.
He's the Sherlock Holmes of medicine.
What was the Watson's character's name? Was it like Wilson?
Watkins?
I think it was Wilson.
Wilson?
It might have actually been. I've seen one episode of House in my entire life.
It's we'll just keep the W's. It's good enough.
That's what they said about the CW after they changed it from the WB. We'll keep the W.
That's what we said in 2004 when we were proposed with John Kerry.
You're right.
We'll keep the W.
We'll keep the W. Today's episode, we're going to be doing Season 21's The Devil Wears Nada, originally aired November of 2009. And I hadn't seen it before today. Jack hadn't seen it.
We watched it
watched it already.
Yeah.
We're not going to take a break
For
like
the
we normally
sake
do.
of the format of this episode.
Right. So we've got 57 minutes and 45 seconds to go. We're going to try and do this whole thing in that time.
All right. And starting with...
Well, I was going to say start with, if you haven't seen it, watch it on
Yeah.
Simpsons World, all that shit, you know how it is. And also go to amazon.wepodcast.com, support the show. That's great. Shop like you normally would. Now,
also check out 90s Percentile.
check out 90s Percentile. That's why we're doing this, but we'll plug it again at the end. Assuming you get to the end. And you're not like, what is this? This is too different. I don't care for it.
Let's stop. Let's start over. Cut all of this.
My name is Sam Houseman, and I don't approve of this.
House.
Is the episode title just going to be House? I don't know, like HAWUSE?
Yeah, that's it.
All right. Done. So let's start off. The Devil Wears Nada, Season 21. We already watched it, so no break.
Yeah, plot recap. So it starts off with basically the supervisor gets at Sector 7G, retires, and Mr. Burns hires Carl to take his place, promotes Carl. And Carl, for whatever reason, makes Homer his assistant and overworks Homer to the nth degree.
I want to put a pin in that for whatever reason. We'll come back to that.
Okay. Oh, yeah. And so Homer's just exhausted. Meanwhile, Marge and her charity group decide to put out a calendar for charity. And the photographer gets them drunk and takes racy photos of them. And for some reason, I guess Marge looks the best. So all 12 months are now racy photos of Marge. And everybody, she's just like, all the men of Springfield are just, wagging their tongues and howling. Their eyes are bugging out. They're doing
like
that
Tex
thing
Avery
where you
cartoons.
pat the foot on the... the wolf whistle. And she's actually getting turned on by that, and she really wants to make love to Homer, but he's just too tired from Carl's job, and she's sexually frustrated. Homer goes on a business trip to Paris, and Marge is so frustrated with Homer leaving that she throws a croquet mallet, hits Flanders in the head. That starts off a conversation where she invites him to dinner. There's a lot of sexual tension, and they come very, very close to making out, if not, just straight up fucking.
Going to the bone zone.
And meanwhile, Homer realizes he hates his job in Paris with Carl, and he misses Marge, so he goes back and he catches them just in the nick of time, except not really, because it looks like they had decided not to do it anyway.
Right.
Everybody followed their conscience, and everything was tied up into a neat little package.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. Just real quick, the couch board, not couch board, the couch board gag.
board.
The blackboard gag was Bart writing. God, I can't even think right now, and we
It's
can't
this
cut
format.
all this, huh?
It's this
really
format.
it's stressing me out.
Fucking you up. You need the full 4 hours of record time to just get out your point.
They've seen the run times and the deleted scenes. They know that that's not really a joke. No, it's Bart writing, "I do not have the hots for my mom," over and over on the chalkboard, which ties into this episode, but also this episode came out when Marge was in Playboy, something we've talked about several times on this podcast.
I think on day 1 we might have mentioned.
I think so, because it's always a top of mind for me, at least.
It's just my go-to thought.
Yeah, and apparently, looking on the Wikipedia page, Al Jean has said this episode, they had already started working on it when the Playboy thing came up. So it was totally independent, but then they did release it at the same time and kind of tied into it a little bit.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, so the opening act where they do the racy calendar, that really has very little impact on the plot. It is the A to the B to the C, but you could have easily swapped it out for another A.
I'd like to talk about that
So
in a minute.
I'm wondering if I could see 90% of this episode being in production and it being a coincidence with Playboy, but I'm wondering if the calendar stuff was specifically added because they knew
Could have been.
that she'd have this racy calendar coming out. Yeah, actually, I kind of... as we've discussed in many times how awkward and weird it is, that Playboy thing. But I do kind of like the idea of the chalkboard gag being used to hint at what the plot is going to be. Like in every
the episode.
Every post-classic episode, if the chalkboard gag was some weird hint of...
Right.
You know,
like an Arrested Development style, like future joke type thing.
Exactly,
like setting something up.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
That'd be interesting.
You know, good use of chalkboard gag.
Yeah.
Time and space.
Yeah.
I just want to say, before we get into it, I really did not like this episode. Like,
No, I didn't
We'll
either.
see how the numbers play out in the end. You know, maybe my hatred for it isn't as fundamental as our worst episode ever title holders.
Yeah.
And our current worst episode ever. But I really didn't like this episode at all.
I didn't either.
I found it so pointless.
Well, okay, so let's talk about kind of just the overall episode,
Yeah.
because I also didn't. It had a couple of moments, which we'll talk about, that we liked, or at least that I liked. But generally, this episode makes absolutely no sense.
the car from Dukes of
Generally,
Hazzard.
from them old Duke boys. House. Get out of the house. The house is haunted. I don't know what's happening.
No, that's good stream of
Getting
consciousness.
away from me. This episode is getting away from us. No, this episode
Oh, that
doesn't.
clock is huge. 52 minutes and 56 seconds.
They're like, people are looking at their phones right now, and they're like, "What? It says 70 hours left." Because we're just gonna keep going until we're finished.
Yep.
No, this episode doesn't make any damn sense.
No, it doesn't.
It starts off. First of all, who the hell is Ted?
Okay, so so the episode starts off with the going away retirement party of Ted, the Sector 7G supervisor. I thought this, at least to make it slightly more relatable, it should have been Sherry or Terry's dad. Not Sherry or Terry's dad.
Actually, that would have been interesting.
That could have been interesting. I'm sure he's a nice guy.
I'm sure he is.
House O'Terry, Sherry O'Terry's dad.
He's a doctor, and he's addicted to pain pills.
A huge coincidence. No. Sherry and Terry's dad, I believe in season 1,
I
was
think
Homer's
so.
supervisor. Although I guess he was Homer's supervisor before Homer got promoted to safety
before he
inspector.
became safety inspector.
Right.
Yeah.
So
in
anyway,
season
that
1.
could have been a nice. You don't want to make him Charlie or somebody where then you can't have him be in the nuclear power plant scenes anymore.
Right.
But he's just it was just dull.
Well, it's just interesting that, like, why even name the guy? Like, who's Ted? Ted is nothing to us. This guy means nothing to us. There was a sort of funny thing where he's like, with my free time, I'm learning Mandarin. And he says something, and then there's this random Chinese coworker we've never seen who just leans into Homer and says, "That's garbage, total garbage."
Yeah.
That was okay.
Yeah, it was okay. I was really thrown off by that scene because, especially when he started talking Mandarin, Ted in general sounded like Mr. Burns, and when he talked in Mandarin, it sounded exactly like Mr. Burns, and I just found that distracting. So they leave.
Well, yeah, I just want to talk just broadly about the plot, though, because it starts off, okay, there's a vacancy in the power plant. Someone gets a promotion. That's fine. Meanwhile, there's this side thing where Marge is doing a racy calendar. Okay, these are decent ways to start plot threads. Neither of them connect to the next beat of the plot thread, which all of a sudden Marge is horny. Just because... Hey, first of all, she wants to do a calendar. It's going to be a sexy calendar. She's not very sexy. She gets drunk and takes sexy pictures. Everyone's leering at her. Yeah. I don't see how that translates directly to, I want to have sex with my husband real bad.
It boosted her confidence,
I guess.
Basically.
But
I could see that. And when I pose nude
right.
for podcast host nudes, the monthly magazine.
Yeah, everyone subscribes, Jack. We all know what you're talking about.
I don't need to explain it. Yeah. We just call it Pod Nude for short.
Pod News Daily.
Yeah, Pod News Daily. When I was on there, back I was Mr. June 12th.
Yeah,
they,
of course.
They every day is a different centerfold.
Every day is a different naked podcast host. I really liked Ira Glass's spread.
And it was a spread.
It was a spread.
It was this butthole spread right open. It was this American Taint. Was the name of the photo, was the caption. No, anyway, so everybody was leering at me and saying like, "Ooh, Jack, we didn't realize how gigantic your penis was and how hard your abs were." And, it made me go, you know what? I do have a nice looking body, and I would like to express that by having sex with my girlfriend.
Of course,
so I could relate.
I'm sure you could, Jack. I know you got a big ego boost from that nude pod daily or whatever the hell we called it.
They're gonna get to you.
Yeah,
they're gonna
I know.
Get to you.
I just want to be asked, is what it is.
They'll get
I'd like
there.
to be asked. I don't know. This episode, it just is. Carl becomes the supervisor, and then out of nowhere, it's just Homer. Now you're my assistant, and we never see a scene until they're in France of Homer actually being Carl's assistant. It's just you're my assistant now, and the next scene is Homer is like, "Oh, Carl's been working me so hard," and we never actually see it.
Yeah, that's true. All right, so I guess do you want to just talk big picture first?
Those were the 2 big points I want to make.
Here's
but go on.
one of the biggest problems I have with how pointless this episode. Let's start with the A plot, Homer, or B plot. I don't know, whichever.
I don't know which one is which. Yeah.
So Homer being Carl's assistant. Homer was an assistant before in a great season 7 episode called Homer the Smithers.
He sure was.
And the basic plot or the basic log line is, what if Homer Simpson was an assistant? And the episode which is fucking hysterical, is how do you take Homer Simpson, the character we know and love from 7 seasons, and put him in this situation? How does that play out? What does he do?
Yeah.
How does Homer Simpson make breakfast? He sets the kitchen on fire and then he buys a bag of donuts.
Yeah.
That's how Homer Simpson. In this case, you're swapping out Carl for Mr. Burns. Whatever. He's basically just playing the overworked stereotypical assistant. His phone's ringing. It's off the hook. He's competent at the job.
I was just gonna say he's competent, which is surprising.
He's good at his job. He's doing it well. There's scenes where Carl is at a fancy party and Homer's whispering in his ear. It's like this is this guy. This is this guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Oh, I had that note as well.
Yeah, he's being a good assistant.
Yeah.
But that's not Homer. Like that. That's not what Homer is.
I completely agree with you, and Carl knows that. So why would Carl hire Homer?
That's another issue. But
why wouldn't he hire Lenny or something? I know then there's no episode, but
no, I know. But we'll get into the details about that.
Yeah.
But just fundamentally, the fact that the plots are the same in Homer the Smithers and this, but one is about Homer Simpson, the character, the reason we're watching the show, is being put in a situation, and this one where basically you have the situation, you have everything already. Anybody could play this assistant. You could get Ryan Gosling to play this assistant, and all the lines are the same.
You could get Anne Hathaway to play the assistant.
You can get Homer Simpson to play the assistant. All the lines are exactly the same. There's no Homer jokes.
You're right.
And it's
You're
just
totally
so
right.
what's the fucking point? And this is literally plot over character. Homer the Smithers. The character's in the name, Homer the Smithers.
Right.
It's the character. This is plot driven, which the plot's not even interesting. It's just him being an assistant. At least if it was like Homer the jetpack rider. It's like, all right, we're sacrificing character because we want to see Homer in a jetpack.
Is it a parody of the Rocketeer? Because
yes,
I would
is.
love to see that.
It's the Homer tier.
Nice.
At least if you're going to do plot over character, make it high concept.
Yeah.
Make it at least somewhat interesting. But who gives a shit about Homer just being an overworked assistant?
Not to be too nitpicky also, but it's called The Devil Wears Nada, which is obviously a play on The Devil Wears Prada, which it's sort of a parody of, but not really.
They love their puns.
So is the devil Carl, and also Carl's never naked? Is Marge the devil?
I'm guessing that was another tie into the Playboy thing. And
it's a pun that doesn't make any sense.
I was expecting some kind of, for some reason, like a Emperor's New Clothes type of morality play with this plot.
You wanted someone to get turned into a llama?
Does that happen?
That's the Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, I was going to say, I don't remember that at all.
I've never even seen the Emperor's New Groove.
Oh, it's a good movie.
I've heard that. It's been on my to-watch list for 15 years.
I still, the very first day I got Netflix, back when it was discs,
Yeah.
I made a queue of like 250 movies.
Yeah.
And I don't do discs anymore, so I guess the queue was deleted. But I was only like 30, 40 movies into it after 10 years because I just kept adding new movies.
Of course.
And I remember one of the first movies I added to Netflix, and I still haven't seen it yet, was Robots, the CGI DreamWorks movie.
Wow. Yeah, I can't say I've seen Robots.
It was like the 30th movie I added to Netflix.
You're like, gotta see Robots.
You know what my very first Netflix movie was?
I would love to know.
City of Angels with Nicolas Cage.
Really?
Yeah. I was just like,
Okay.
let's give it a shot. Where else am I going to be able to see this? I can order it from the internet, and it'll be here in 3 days.
Yeah, and you can hear that Goo Goo Dolls song whenever you want.
And I'll give up forever to touch you.
And Dennis Francis Butt is in
And
it.
Dennis Francis Butt, of course.
Yeah, no. So I really had a problem with the whole plot because it was just so pointless.
Yeah, completely agree. But let's go back to the first few scenes here.
Yeah. So Burns walks up to Carl and Lenny and says, "I need one of you to take his place." Homer and Lenny look dumb. Carl fixes a light bulb. He looks competent.
I kind of like that Carl gets the job because he fixes a light bulb.
Yeah, he is I guess he's the most competent of the three.
Yeah,
but
I
they
would say
definitely
so.
upped his game. They altered character for the sake of plot. Where
Right. No part of this story was, oh, my friend is now my boss. What
Yeah.
is that like?
That's an
All of a
interesting-
sudden, Carl
yeah.
is just a jerk.
That's an interesting, relatable thing. That would be a really great idea for a story. And that's exactly where I thought they were going too.
Yeah, and they didn't at all. It's
And they
never
even
addressed.
hint at it where. Well, real quick, I just want to mention there's an executive washroom key gag, which was whatever, and it's like they already did the executive washroom gag in season 2, and it was way better.
Right. Well, it's kind of like the inverse of that episode. What was that? Simpson and Delilah,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Where Homer he gets a promotion. Now
right.
Carl's the one getting the
And
promotion.
he gets a great assistant.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what were we saying?
Well, I wanted to talk about there was a gag right before that happened,
Yeah.
actually, where they were like, oh, we're going to miss Ted. He looked the other way. We used to mess with the soda machine, and they press the club soda button, and a beer comes out.
Yeah.
That was funny.
Yeah.
But what was not funny was they do it, and you see the beer come out, and you hear Homer from off camera just go, beer,
Yeah.
as if you didn't get what the joke was.
Come on, what is this, Beavis and Butthead?
They do that again later on in the first act when Marge says, oh, we had a great bake sale to raise awareness for childhood obesity. And I thought that's really funny.
Yeah.
Then it cuts to a bunch of kids,
Eating the
fat
cake.
kids in the treehouse eating cake
Yeah.
and being like, oh, we're so fat.
Yeah.
Terrible.
It's no
I
good.
you
It
did
was
not
pointless.
need that scene.
No, it was not. It was unnecessary.
Yeah.
I did like Mr. Burns catches Lenny drinking the beer, so Lenny puts the beer down his pants upside down, and then it looks like he's just wetting his pants. That was a
Yeah.
fun little animation. And out of everything that I liked in this episode, because I didn't like much, 99% of it was like nice little animation things that we'll come across.
Yeah. What did you think? Speaking of nice animation, because I did like the way it was animated. What did you think of
Marge's
this? Like,
nipples and Playboy.
Yep. How'd you like that animation,
They
bro?
look photorealistic.
They sure did. Google it if you don't believe us. But no, this scene where Homer is like, what's it going to be like? I think it was like, what's it going to be like to work for Carl? And he fantasizes driving like Mini Coopers around the power
it was,
plant.
what would it be like if there were no supervisors?
Right. Oh, we could supervise ourselves, he
Yeah.
said. Yeah. And they're racing these Mini Coopers. I guess it's an Italian job type reference.
Yeah, it reminded me of Mario Kart because they were driving through a building. Like
Yeah, they were
building
driving through the
was
power
racetrack.
plant. Yeah. And they get to the finish line, and Lenny wins in Homer's fantasy, and then it comes back to reality, and Lenny's like, I won.
Yeah, so they shared the dream.
I like that,
Yeah, it was
actually.
nice and surreal.
Yeah.
And then so Carl sees his reflection in the executive washroom key. You can see the power going to his head already, and they're like, "Oh man, this is great! Carl's gonna be our boss. We're gonna do whatever we want." And Carl's like, "Yeah, maybe, but let's go celebrate after work." And then he walks off, and then he
Yeah.
comes on the PA, and he's just like. He's like, by the way, if you think that if you're starting to get the thought that I might actually be a real serious ball buster,
Yeah, I'm
you're
changing
right.
in ways that
Yeah.
you're only beginning to
Yeah.
understand.
And it's like that was a funny
That's a
little
good line.
It was foreshadowing, except like you just said, it didn't foreshadow anything because that's
No.
not where the plot went. And it's so weird that they would go out of their way to foreshadow it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, you could have just had Homer is picked to go with Smithers or something, or Mr. Burns even, and just, I don't know. It didn't make sense. Like, why is it this specific
It seemed
setup?
like this entire plot was basically to get him away from Marge and to make her sexually frustrated.
Right.
And you're right. It could have been literally anything. Or have it be a great A plot, B plot that are independently great and tie into each other, but
Yeah.
there's nothing about this assistant plot that is interesting at all.
No, not at all. But then we get to our other
yeah,
A
so
plot.
then it just
We got
like-
a double A plot
Yeah,
today.
it's like
It's like AA plots. The famous novelist.
AA plots.
Yep.
Mystery novel.
Yep.
He starts at the end and works his way backwards.
Yep, a friend of J.D. McGregor. The other plot being, of course, the Springfield charity chicks. That's how we start off. They're going to do the calendar, we said, because the bake sale was such a hit, which we already talked about.
They say, we need a theme. I like this.
I like this
Marge
too.
goes, where can we get a theme? And she looks, and there's just a Newsweek that says, the history of genocide.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, that's a good theme. History. That was a weird gag. Like, I didn't love it, but it was just...
I also didn't love it, but it was cute.
Were we supposed to think that she was going to say genocide?
I think so. Yeah, I liked it. It was a
Yeah.
cute little moment.
I just like that it was weird. Weird for the sake of weird.
Yeah. So yeah, there's this whole scene of taking the photos of the women in the calendar. There's like a sexy Luann wrapped in the American flag. I guess she's
Yeah.
supposed to be Betsy Ross.
Hey, she's
She's a dish.
fingering in that jacuzzi
She
suit.
could be in that Playboy. She can mill my house.
Milhouse.
So we get this character who I think we've seen before, this Hank Azaria, basically his character from the Birdcage.
Yeah.
Gay photographer stereotype guy.
That's his name.
Yeah, that's right.
There's comic book guy and there's a gay photographer stereotype guy.
Yeah.
No, he has a name. I can't remember it though.
Let's just assume it's John. So John is taking the photos, and I don't know. It didn't do much for me, this whole scene, and it felt kind of weird and a little bit predatory that it's like, hey, Marge, drink more wine
get
and
drunk so I
continue to take your clothes off.
Yeah. I also thought it was weird that then Marge becomes every single month. I thought maybe there'd be some repercussions about that. Again, if her whole plot, her A plot was about this calendar, then I could see lots of nuance.
They looked more like C plots.
Hey, house, and they basically, I could see them there being a plot like they're jealous, like, oh yeah. I mean, I don't necessarily need to see Wiggum's wife in lingerie, but
right.
Thank you, Sarah.
But we did see Wiggum with a big butt washing a car, I think, in the police calendar that gave him the idea.
They were inspired by the police. You have the right to remain sexy.
Yeah, right. It just felt to me like this whole first act was a setup to a different episode.
Yeah, because
then it comes back from the act break and everything is kind of different.
Yeah, she's in the bookstore and she's getting ogled by everybody. And I was like, all right, so this is going to be where she feels really alienated and embarrassed.
I got flashbacks to Large Marge.
Yeah, exactly. And basically I thought it was going to be the exact same plot as Large Marge. Yeah. I'm glad it wasn't.
Right, I'm glad it was something different.
I'm glad it wasn't that. I mean, and again, it's if anything, it's it's more. I don't know if it's pro-feminist, but it's less anti-feminist than Large Marge in that like she's being empowered by this, and she's
right.
She's I still found it really uncomfortable how leery and how wolfy.
Well, there's a specific one I want to talk about later.
Yeah, but at least they were going with a different angle, which would have been great if this was a story. But it pretty much stops at the bookstore.
Yeah,
I guess
you're
it
right.
stops with this one scene with Bart in Springfield Elementary.
That's the scene I want to talk about, but I'll wait until we get there. Yeah, the act just ends with Cletus just giggling and just looking at the photos of Marge while he sees her actual
and it's like,
sad face.
Algene says this is a coincidence that this came out a month after the Playboy.
Well, it's a coincidence. They were already doing the episode, but they... Playboy, that was known when they were actually doing the episode. I
can't remember how they justified why Marge was in Playboy. I guess because she's a big pop culture figure.
I have no idea. I don't know what the thought process was that went into that one.
My understanding is that Playboy is supposed to be kind of classy, and if a gentleman's magazine you read and you appreciate the beauty, but you don't like drool over it and go boobies. Like
I do.
It's porno, so that's what it is. But I thought that was like the PR. It was. So I thought that's like the PR image Playboy like to have. That's why they're not even doing nude photos anymore.
Exactly.
And I'm trying to picture what the Simpsons perspective was. I guess it was just why are they putting Marge in Playboy? But
I think ultimately at the end of the day, it was two things that are way, way past their peak popularity, trying to just grab
be relevant and
PR.
But so I'm not exactly sure what their rationale was, but I'm guessing what they don't want to do is call attention to being just like, look, it's Marge's boobies, and that's exactly what this was doing. You're having Cletus and the Springfielders do that, and it's just a weird parallel to be drawing when you probably don't want to be like, hey, we just put Marge in Playboy,
right?
So you could like drool over it and jerk off to it and stuff.
The men in this episode, especially the Cletus scene, they're portrayed in a negative light of being like, boobs, and that's what's happening in real life.
And you would think that the Simpsons writers would want to avoid that parallel at all costs because I'm guessing, again, I don't know, I'm guessing they were probably trying to justify Marge being in Playboy by being, the fact that they're two big pop culture titans, the fact that they're bringing attention to it. The one fact I don't want to say is, because it's kind of hot and we want you to jerk off to it. Like that
should be the cover of Playboy. It's kind of hot, and we want you to jerk off to it.
Like they don't want to say that out loud, and it's weird because they're kind of saying it out loud here.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. It was just an odd concept. I thought. There was a couple of quick things just before the end of the act break. Actually, before that Cletus scene, C. Carl Carlson is now what he's going by.
Is that a joke about how his name must be like Carl Carlson or something, or is it a joke of C. Montgomery Burns?
I thought it was a C. Montgomery Burns.
I think it might be a little of both.
Could be. CCC works for CCH Pounder.
Mr. Burns, what's your first name?
I don't know. And there's
what is CCH short for? CCH Pounder.
I don't know.
She was great in RoboCop 3.
God damn it! Why do we keep talking about RoboCop 3? We need to do a sync points on RoboCop 3.
I can't
get it out of our system.
Yeah, and she was good in The Shield. There was that really sad season arc where she got lupus.
I have never watched The Shield, but that is not what we're here to discuss.
Good show.
So here we are. We're talking about CCH Pounder. No, there was a scene where
That's
Homer...
for CCH Percentile, hosted by AAA Plots, who just did the nude podcast.
he's a podcast host also.
Yeah, he did
That's
it
amazing.
yesterday. Yeah.
He hosts Where's the Plots with AA Plots. Homer comes in to see Carl, and he has the softball sign-up sheet, and he's like, "Oh, I made a funny change. I changed Schmitty to," and then Carl interrupts him.
Yeah.
And I think we're supposed to assume it's to Shitty, but then he says it's to Spitty, and it just goes on. And
Yeah, none of this was funny.
None of it worked.
You mentioned that his Homer's pupils look dilated.
Yeah, throughout the whole episode.
I'm just guessing he went to the optometrist and
Right.
got some drops, and that's why he shouldn't be behind a car. That's why he took a cab to the airport. He shouldn't be driving.
That's a good point.
So, but I do want to note that from the few Simpsons commentaries on DVD I did listen to back in the day.
Yeah.
I remember Matt Groening always complaining about early Simpsons pupil sizes. I think also in the what's it called? The oral history book. By Ortfed. I think they also mention it. But basically, Groening hates pupil dilating. He hated that the pupil sizes were always inconsistent, and especially when they were big and wide. And I found it interesting that in the computer HD era, where I'm assuming
all you gotta do is type in the code for pupils.
Yeah, exactly. The algorithm, the zeros and ones.
HTTP
/ pupils. Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. So I found it interesting that they still fuck it up, and I wonder if Matt Groening's just like, God damn it,
he's like, you fucked it again, Gene. Host, get in here. Matt Groening,
I need you to solve this medical problem of Homer's animated eyes, and only you can do it.
It was probably lupus, if we're being honest.
It was animated eye lupus.
That's
AEL.
right. AEL strikes a lot of characters. Felix the Cat has AEL.
But a great cure for it is JELLO.
No,
we can't cut this.
Can't cut this.
Can't cut it. It's just
we
here.
could, and we're trying not to.
No,
but
I'm not.
If it's really bad.
I'm not editing anymore.
right.
I'm done.
All right. So when the show nosedives, that's why. Because we're leaving in the Jello conversation.
What's Bill Cosby up to these days?
I don't know. I think he's writing his memoirs. Why I Did It by Bill Cosby. To be released upon his death.
Well, OJ wasn't trying to get it released on his death.
Yeah, well, that was If I Did It. It was totally different.
I thought that's what you.
No, it was. I was making a play on that. But anyway,
I plan to fill the void with gardening, early dining, and I've been learning to speak Mandarin Chinese. Fat Kung Troy.
That's garbage. That's total garbage.
so that's it for Act 1. That is as far as what I have.
Yeah. Oh no. One line. I hate the fucking wordplay humor in post-classic Simpsons. Here's a great example of it where they take a phrase that you don't hear every day, or you do hear it every day, but you don't think about it, and they tweak it in a way that makes it funny. And this is a great example of it where Carl goes, "I'm going to need you at my beck," and Homer goes, "Fine." And then Carl goes, "And call," because at your beck and call is a phrase.
Thing.
And Homer goes, "No." The joke being he's okay with the beck, but not crazy about the call. And it's just like, come on.
Yeah.
Beck and call, if you think about it, it's something you would probably say and not even realize, but if you think about it, it's a weird phrase. But by dissecting it like that, come on, what's the point?
It didn't work at all for
point?
me, I'll say that. So then the act break comes back, and like we said, Carl is just suddenly like, Homer's my assistant now. Okay,
Yeah.
great. Storytelling?
Why
No
don't
reason.
Why aren't you just hiring a receptionist?
Yeah. Why are you taking out the safety inspector? Whatever. I don't want to nerd out too much and be like, no, this episode needs to be better.
It doesn't make any sense.
It was, but Marge goes to church, and I saw while she was driving by the actual topic of the sermon, it just said today's topic, Marge, on the bulletin board outside of the church. No joke, but I liked it. I thought that was funny.
I thought they could have come up with some kind of dirty pun, like fucking Devil Wears Nada, something.
Fucking Devil Wears Nada.
House.
This may be our worst episode ever. Marge goes to church, and everyone's like, oh, hey, Marge. And there's this random black woman.
Oh, she looked like
What
an
was
animated Cicely Tyson. I don't know if that was a reference to something.
I don't know.
I don't know. But she said something about
Marge's butt, like
they were all like
you're always at
complimenting
work because your butt don't quit.
Yeah,
that's what this woman said.
Yeah, I don't know.
Did they just want like
I know.
a stereotypical black woman to make that kind of joke?
Again, I don't know if it was a parody of a movie or something.
I don't know. I have no idea. If you know, let us know.
I don't know. It stood out.
Yeah.
So then she gets horny from all this ovulation.
Right, and that's my point. Is like we had this scene where Marge is at church and everyone's kind of talking about her and talking to her and being like, "Oh, Marge," and then like there's no sign that she likes it, and then all of a sudden it's just like, "Oh, she's dressed all sexy in her negligee in the bedroom with Homer, showing some cleave," and she says, "Oh, everyone else gets to see the calendar, but you get to rifle through the pages," which I assume means
Homer.
fingering her vagina.
Well, that's when you turn a page, you're taking a couple fingers and you're.
I have called lady fingering, ruffling through the pages for years now. So to me, that is what it sounded like.
I call it shuffling the deck. It's like, hey, baby, you want to mix things up tonight?
Yeah,
you want me to shuffle the
deck? Shuffle the deck. Whoa, he just did it.
And just fingered Dan. I had to show him.
Can't cut this, can we?
Had to show him what I was talking about. I had to show my technique.
Well, you're a gifted deck shuffler, Jack.
I showed him the move. There was a knuckle in there. Feels like aliens probing at my body.
This episode is getting away from us.
Those are Seinfeld references, by the way. You should check out Seinfeld.
You should watch Seinfeld. It's a good show. So there was a scene where they each have a fantasy about their sex drives, as depicted by
I would call
boats.
it a fantasy. It's more like when they pan up to the head and they show how the head is working, like
right.
A cow playing turkey in the straw or something.
Yeah, so Marge, her sex drive is like this big boat where a bunch of
SS Libido
diesel men are just shoveling coal into a big furnace.
Yeah.
All steam ahead.
Yeah.
Ready to
all
bone.
semen ahead.
All semen ahead. There was a lot of semen in there.
And ahead.
And Homer's, meanwhile, was a small little motorboat that I think it was called the SS Not Tonight, Honey.
Yeah.
And it's that little guy who sounds like Droopy.
Sounds like Droopy. Get him, fellas.
And he hangs himself with.
Well, first he's pulling the motor, and the motor's not
yeah.
working. And it's a gas motor, and it's just got like that empty pulling on the gas motor.
Right.
Sound,
Then he ties
which is a great metaphor for impotence and like having no libido that night. And then
I wouldn't know.
But you're right. There's I would because of my giant penis, and it just sometimes it takes a lot of work to get it up.
Even if it's not erect, you can slide it in there.
Yeah,
it's so big.
I just mash it in. That's what I call. That's what I call sex. I call it time to mash.
To mash those potatoes.
She doesn't like it when I say that though.
No.
She likes shuffling the deck, but she doesn't like mashing the potatoes.
I wonder why. I can't imagine.
It's not pretty from the outside. But yeah, no, I like the metaphor of
the motor,
the dying motor, and then
but
this extra beat is like a dark extra beat. It's
pretty
a
dark.
Suicidal extra beat.
Yeah,
like
he wraps the cord for the motor around his neck and then throws it off the side of the
drowns
boat
himself.
and drowns himself.
Yeah, all right.
It was weird, and it was out of nowhere because we hadn't seen Homer be overworked at all. It was just he came in and he was like, "I'm overworked," which is great.
Great storytelling,
unshowing and untelling.
Yeah, no, that was terrible. Yeah, no, you're right.
I actually wrote nothing like hearing Homer complain about work.
That's what I want to do. My 20 minutes a day where I'm not at work complaining. No, and it's besides the fact that it's just bad storytelling because it's telling, not showing. Again, who gives a shit about him being an overworked assistant? Like that.
Right.
That's anybody. Anybody who gets that job in real life would be an overworked assistant.
And it was
I
not
want to see Homer Simpson be a bad bumbling assistant.
Right, and Homer becomes an overworked assistant is not the episode that we were sold in the first act. It was Carl becomes a boss, not Homer works for Carl, who is now a jerk, and Homer is overworked. Whatever.
I don't know.
There was a cute-ish little scene. Actually, I'm curious to see what you think of it, where Marge is coming on to Homer, and she opens up her negligee, and instead of her breasts, Homer sees Carl.
A lot of breasts in the Q4 of 2009. A lot of Marge breasts.
It was the talk of the universe, not just the planet.
The whole
universe.
Aliens from Planet X. They were going, wow, Marge has been showing
Marge's breasts are very
Why do they
nice.
talk like that?
Marvin the Martian on Planet X. That one made sense.
Oh, okay. Right. He's from Planet X?
Yeah, wasn't he?
We assumed he was from Mars, being a Martian.
Yeah. What's Planet X then? Did I just make that up?
Planet X is where they're flying, and there's like a planet A, B, C, D, and then finally they get to a planet with a big X branded in it.
I thought that
Yeah,
was,
no, that's one of the episodes. It's Daffy Duck.
Oh, it was
where he's
Duck Dodgers,
yeah.
24th and a half century. All right, well, I'm confusing my Looney
Get your
Tunes.
shit together. I'm
sorry,
we're
guys.
not cutting any of this.
It's just after I had my
gotta
butthole
get-
fingered, I'm like all sorts of over the place.
This was an eventful podcast.
It really was. We've
Session.
learned a lot about each other.
Fingers smell.
Really can't cut any of this. All right. Yeah. So, what did you think of Homer seeing Carl as Marge's breast?
So that was one of the interesting animation elements.
It
I
was.
didn't find it very funny, but it was just it's an animated show. Play with the animation,
Yeah.
fine. I actually like better right before that. They start making out, and he falls asleep and he starts snoring.
Yeah.
And as he would go, he would exhale into Marge's mouth, and her mouth would like fill up with air.
Oh, I didn't even notice
Yeah,
that.
and then it would come back, and then he would inhale, and it would go back down, and that was a fun little animation.
Yeah, that's nice. My big thing about seeing Carl's face as Marge's boobs, we hadn't seen Carl like that. Like, it was Carl being demanding and things, but
Yeah.
there had been no scenes of that yet. We get them in France later, but it was just
It's all inferred.
yeah. I don't like to infer. I like things spelled out for me, except jokes. Am I inconsistent? I don't know.
Who gives a shit?
Who's listening to this still? I don't know.
I guess it really is better when we just do 5 hours.
maybe.
Just
Whittle down the crap.
that's another sexual term I use in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Whittle down the crap.
Well,
I won't tell you what it's for.
I think we all know.
Okay. So Marge gets some sexy dice to liven it up. Those dice where you roll them and
Right. There's a scene at Springfield Elementary first
all right,
that
you wanna
I
talk
really
about that
really
first?
quick want to talk
Let's
about.
talk
Yeah.
about that.
There's a weird scene. All of the kids have the calendar. Nelson keeps making like, I'd like to whatever Bart's mom.
and they were not very funny.
Not very funny. Milhouse is looking at it and his eyebrows go up. And I was like, this is weird. It's another Milhouse eyebrow raising joke. Because there's the famous one, Milhouse, lower those eyebrows,
Yeah.
and the other one.
Yeah.
This is kind of the same thing, except Bart hits Milhouse in the face and his eyebrows get stuck.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
odd.
Yeah. It's weird.
It was weird.
I mean, I guess they felt it was necessary. But if this plot was about Marge, if the entire
Yeah, this is
Marge
the
plot-
last bit about that.
Yeah, if it was about her being a calendar and you're doing, all right, how do the different parts of the community react to this, and how does this affect each of the individual Simpsons members?
Yeah.
Then of course you need a scene where Bart's being hounded because his mom is a MILF. That makes sense. But
Right.
what is that? That has nothing to do with the rest of the
It
episode.
felt really out of place, actually, because they'd kind of dropped this plot line already
was the last
to be
one,
like
yeah.
Marge is super horny and Homer is too tired
Yeah.
to have sex.
It's really
and now
weird.
it's just like, oh, remember this thing? Here's
Yeah.
how Bart dealt with it.
Yeah, no, it's really
And
weird.
the way he dealt with it was he stands up to Nelson, and then he gets sent to Skinner's office, and Skinner is like, we're going to have to punish you for standing up for yourself to an older boy.
Why is Nelson older? Did he get left back?
I think he got left back.
All right,
I think that's canon.
Okay.
But what I thought that was kind of funny. Like, Bart is actually trying to do the right thing, but he still gets in trouble.
It's a funny idea, yeah.
But what I did not like was he's in Skinner's office, and both Skinner and Chalmers have the calendar, and they're just like ogling Marge right in front of Bart, and it
Yeah.
was just like very A, out of character, and B, like kind of really disgusting.
Yeah, yeah. I
So
mean,
I
don't
did
know.
not like that.
When I look at pornographic magazines,
I always do it in the principal's office.
I always do it in front of the children of the models.
Of course. I call them
that's
up and
that's
I Skype with them.
That's why I have trouble getting hard,
Yeah.
because it's these days it only happens when the child of the person I'm sexualizing is watching.
Yeah, it was a real turn. It's a real weird turn on,
It's a weird fetish.
but it's a good one.
yeah.
The ends justify the means.
I thought of a stand-up joke the other day. It's like, what do you think about this? There's a fetish for everything on
Yeah.
the internet except for small penis fetish. why don't any women find that?
I think there might be some women out there who like a
they're
little,
just-
you know.
Let us
some-
know.
some-
We for a friend, asking for a friend.
Some women have, smaller vaginas, and maybe they want a
It's a
little.
little easier to mash it in.
It's they don't want
They want baby-
a sausage. They want a
they
little
want baby
hot pocket.
potatoes. They want baby
They
potatoes.
want a beans and Franks situation.
What happened? What's going on? This isn't even We After Dark.
I don't know what this
This
is.
is just like, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
This may be our worst episode ever. I'm sorry. I
You
apologize.
keep saying that. You don't.
Don't let them tell us it's
Yeah,
the worst episode
exactly.
ever. All right,
Exactly.
guys, tell us this is
Show, not tell. Show, not tell.
Tell us we're good.
We're,
That's all we
we're
want.
showing them that it's our worst episode ever.
Yeah.
Don't tell them it's our worst episode ever.
But anyway, the dice thing that you were talking about.
So they get the dice where each die is they really go out of their way to explain it, I guess, assuming we don't know what they are.
Yeah.
Where one is
Have you used sexy dice
one's
before?
a verb and one's a noun, and you roll the dice and you do this with your partner.
Right.
And Homer, I found this kind of stand-up-y humor because it didn't feel like a Simpsons joke to me.
Yeah.
But it
I
kind of
I wrote all the ones that Homer rolled.
Yeah, it kind of grows on me. But basically, Homer's problem is all of his combinations don't really work.
Right. He gets lick eyes. That's the first one.
yeah.
Spank hair.
Yeah.
Whisper into ass.
Yeah, Whisper into ass made
Was
me laugh.
really good. Yeah, I like that
Whisper,
one.
although that,
I liked all of
out of
them.
the three, whispering into ass again, I could see that actually being a real fetish.
I could see it.
Like licking eyes, I don't. I guess that's probably also a fetish.
It's like what's it called? ASM, I think. ASMR, I think, where you put on headphones and there's like YouTube videos of someone like whispering into a microphone. And
Oh,
being like, I'm
really?
gonna cut your hair now, and like, it's like you're having.
Wait,
your
it's
hair...
not sexual?
It's no,
Not overtly.
It's not overtly sexual, but some people get like a stimulation from it, like this, like really whisper talking
Ooh.
into your ears. It's really
Somebody's
weird.
probably J.O. into you right now.
That's fine. It's totally fine. No, it's not. It's gross.
I'm mashing it into your.
God.
I'm mashing my flaccid potato into.
This is not what this show is supposed to be.
Maybe we should do that. Revamp the show. How big is the fetish? How big is the market?
You know, we turned
How
into a
big's that demo?
hardcore sex podcast so gradually. I didn't even notice.
I'm just saying there might be more. What is it? ADR.
ASMR, I think is what it's
ASMR.
called. I don't know what it stands
fans
for.
and post-classic Simpsons fans.
There are, because these things get millions of hits on YouTube.
Well, maybe
and it's like,
we should definitely do this then.
all right. Look forward to We ASMR.
Maybe
Whatever that means.
Maybe we could just keep the Simpsons thing. When we talk about the Simpsons episode, we're just you put on the headphones. You're listening to worst episode ever. Our jaunty little 12-second opening theme starts. And then Dan says, "Hey everybody, this is worst episode ever. And now we're going to talk about the episode." And I put my hand on your shoulder, and I say, "How did you feel about this episode?"
I feel like so many people are uncomfortable right now, including myself.
Also, we're giving ourselves lots of cancer with these carcinogenic.
Yeah, we're getting real close to these mics, which have literal cancer on them. Autonomous sensory meridian response is what it stands for, if you want to look into it.
Man, we're just a fucked up species, huh? We're just
Just a lot of weird quirks.
Is there one normal person? Is there
No.
one person who doesn't have like something he's embarrassed to tell other people about?
Probably not.
There's not one normal person.
No, there's not. We all have our secrets.
What's Freet's?
I'm
What's
not
Freet's
going to
fetish?
tell you. I like to spank hair and whisper into asses.
Imagine Freet was a ASMR.
I do enjoy it. That's another characteristic.
What would that sound like if Freet did it?
Hey, I'm standing behind you. I'm going to put my hand on your shoulder.
Yeah, I bet there's one person who thinks that's attractive and is getting
Well-
hard. They would be if they heard that. They turned it off.
If you would
they
like
turned
to
this episode off 20 minutes ago.
Send me money. I will I will have Freet record a full-length ASMR video for you. All right, so that's the dice thing.
Yeah,
and
so now Homer has to go. Basically, he's just not fucking Marge, and she's frustrated.
Yeah.
And now he has to go to France for some business trip.
Well,
What kind of supervisor is Carl?
I have no idea. But even before that, like, it becomes Marge is mad that he's not spending any time with her, and you're working too hard. That comes out of nowhere, and then Homer has to leave for France, and this is when Flanders gets hit in the head with whatever it was.
That's what I
a
wanted to
mallet?
mention. So Homer is leaving for France, and he leaves in a
Yeah.
cab, which I turned to you and I said, I bet you we're going to get a Simpsons episode very soon where there's an Uber in it.
I bet
Like,
Homer
where-
becomes an
where-
Uber driver.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just interesting because at some point, who knows when, there was the first smartphone in a Simpsons episode.
Right.
So it's very interesting to think like, oh my God, there was 26 seasons without an Uber, but now Uber is so prevalent. At some point, you're
Yeah.
going to see like an animated Simpsons car with like a U in the window.
There's going to be an episode where the Simpsons put their house up on Airbnb.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
like,
That's not a bad plot.
It's not a bad plot.
Otto crashes on the couch.
oh man, and Spinal Tap comes to play.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, so he leaves in the cab, and Marge is frustrated. I guess they play croquet in the front yard. Is it croquet? Is that
Croquette.
croquet?
Croquet? Yeah, I think either way.
That's the one with the mallets, though. That wasn't with. Yeah. All right. So anyway, she throws one of the mallets, and it hits.
It hits Flanders right in the head.
And then the act ends.
Well, but it ends with like a musical sting, like
Yeah.
like a dramatic
So
sting.
the dramatic sting is basically saying this is an important story moment. Marge hurt Flanders, which we didn't know at the time. At
Right.
first, I was just like, wow, that was random.
I wrote down this is the act break, an unrelated Flanders gag with a weird
yeah, it
musical
seemed
sting.
like it was just a throwaway gag.
Right.
Although it turned out not to
It turned out not to be, but also Flanders hadn't been in this episode at all.
No.
It was just, and now it's just suddenly he becomes a major part of the episode.
This is where the calendar thing is dropped, never comes back up maybe once again. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe there's a line or two, but it's the calendar stuff is done. Now it's Marge feels bad. Now that it's the Marge Flanders, sexually frustrated Marge.
Yeah.
Which, yes, A to B to C, she's sexually frustrated because of the calendar. But for all intents and purposes,
I don't really think that's A to B to C, but that's
for all
maybe
intents
that's
and
just me.
purposes, the calendar is out of the picture now.
Right.
And now it's just about her and Flanders.
Yeah, so Marge goes to apologize to Flanders and invite him to a dinner at the Simpsons house to make up for hurting him with Rod and Todd, of course.
Yeah. By the way, I think they did a decent, good integrity, good character work with Flanders throughout this episode, where Flanders was acting very Flanders, and there was lots of very funny Flanders jokes.
Yes, Flanders is good in this last act.
And this is probably my favorite, what he says.
Oh, I was
Dishwasher.
Oh, that was not what I was going to say next,
all right.
but that was good. Where he says that he and Rod and Todd will be the dishwashing crew.
No,
Rod
he says
cleans.
only. He's like, "Can I have you guys over for dinner?" And he's like, "Only if you want the best dishwashing town, dishwashing team in town."
Right.
And Rod's like, "I
wash, I dry."
I dry." And Flanders goes, "And I do a squeak test before we throw it in the dishwasher."
Yeah.
I think that's really funny. That again, that's very Flanders for them to do the dishes intensely, and then
do it in the dishwasher.
when I had a dishwasher, I would always do the dishes and then put them in the dishwasher because I'm a germaphobe.
Really?
Yeah, but I wouldn't do them intensely. I get all the crud off and
My
stuff.
dishwasher is currently broken and has
You have
like
a dishwasher?
a half inch of water with like shit in it. It's just been sitting there for 2 weeks.
I decided the other day that like I would give up. I would give up like a penthouse apartment in Manhattan. I would take a dishwasher over a penthouse apartment.
Dishwasher's pretty good.
If the penthouse doesn't have a dishwasher,
Yeah.
it's both great. That would be like I would take a dishwasher over getting a Ferrari. A Ferrari would be awesome, but I don't
Right.
need a Ferrari.
yeah.
A dishwasher would raise my standard of living. I do dishes like 6 hours a week.
You could get a standalone dishwasher, a freestanding one.
I was thinking about doing it. It's just whenever you get plumbing involved, it's a hassle
True.
that I'm not good at.
I agree.
I hate doing the dishes.
The line that I thought you were going to say, and I was surprised you were saying it was a great line, was there's one where I don't remember what the setup was. Flanders is saying, he's recovered from his injury, I guess, and Rod and Todd are like, I thought we were going to have to go stay with Uncle whoever and his friend Joe or whatever. And Flanders says, I'd rather put rocks into your pockets and walk you out to sea before that happened, implying like he would murder his children before having them live with homosexuals.
That line I only kind of half-assed heard, and I didn't quite understand how bad it was until just now.
Yeah.
So I take back everything I said about Flanders having high integrity.
Yeah.
I guess it sort of fits his character, but that's terrible for him to say. He would rather kill his kids than have them be babysat one night by a gay couple. That's terrible.
It's weird with Flanders because he is the overtly religious character, and there are a lot of like right-wing religious people who are very, very anti-gay.
No.
But I never, in the early days, I never got that vibe from Flanders. He was just always overly nice.
Well, the early days, he wasn't even super Christian.
But even when he was super Christian, he was just very, very nice about it. Like he was almost a Mormon in a sense, like just nice in the face of anything.
He was of the school where like Jesus Christ, not to get political, but had a lot of the same views as like a communist. Like he looks out for the poor and the huddled masses. And
right. So then when you see that Flanders is kind of has animosity towards any group, even if it makes sense
it's
with his Christianness,
Christ, if not anti-Christian. Yeah,
it's weird.
Yeah.
It's very weird to me.
No, it is weird. He seems to be like one of the benevolent. Basically, like my church. I grew up Moravian, and that was a very open-minded Protestant religion, which was basically like just love each other. Like don't bring that shit into it. And like I feel like even though Flanders is whatever they are, Presbyterian or whatever,
some kind of
you're right.
Protestant.
That's it's a different brand of Christianity that we usually associate.
It toes a weird line. Yeah. But I guess if what are you gonna have another crazy Christian character to be like your anti-gay character?
Do you need somebody saying they would rather drown their children?
No, you do not. That's my ultimate point.
So Homer's in Paris.
Yeah, he sure is.
There's a lot of fun animation here too. Basically, he misses Marge. Am I getting ahead of myself?
You're getting ahead of yourself, but I agree. Let's just talk about it now. I agree. It was really great animation. He sees Marge in like a baguette, and also in the windmill at the Moulin Rouge.
Four of Marge's stalks of hair, being
right?
The mills of the windmills,
right? And her
blades.
face was the center. They were the spokes, I guess.
The spokes, the blades, the windies.
But probably the best one was Homer is looking at the Eiffel Tower, and you expect that the Eiffel Tower will turn into Marge, but instead it's the gargoyle next to Homer that turns into Mo.
Yeah, poor
which
Mo.
was pretty great.
It's super random, and that's totally for Simpsons fans. Like, if
yeah.
you're a newcomer to that show, you're like, why is
what?
Because Mo's not in this episode.
No, this would be a terrible first episode to watch. You'd be like, I don't get it. Is she always naked?
Well, I get, which maybe they did somehow get new viewers from the Playboy, some crossover.
Do you think that really brought in viewers to The Simpsons?
You don't think there's one
somebody's
guy,
reading Playboy
one
and he's
guy's
like, I
reading
gotta watch this show about this like sexy mother who shows her tits all the time.
That sounds silly, but out of
you
millions
really
of
think
people,
so?
do you not think there was one person who had never seen The Simpsons before and checked it out because of that article?
If literally anyone is listening to this who saw the Playboy article and was then like, I gotta watch
There's
The
a
Simpsons.
lot more people that watch the show.
I know. I'm
than
just
listen
saying.
to our
Look,
show.
we can only appeal to the people who are listening to this right now.
So we're talking
Let
to
us
you,
know.
Tom and House.
Tom Houseman. That wasn't his name.
I'm just talking the two separate listeners.
All right.
Tom and House.
Tom and House. Sounds like a spin-off of House.
Oh, I think it's a spinoff of Tom and Jerry. Jerry dies.
So House comes in.
House
Dr. House comes in.
And he's trying to get the cheese.
He really hates mice.
And Tom is just trying to stop him, trying to eat him.
Classic tomfoolery in the house.
And Tom can be played by Tom Hiddleston because he and House have a very good rapport in that
On
AMC
the
show.
Night Manager. Yeah.
See, we could run a TV studio.
We could. It's really not that hard.
It's not that hard. You see how easy we just came up with that brilliant Emmy-winning...
Yeah, I think we're onto something. All right.
The bit ended. What do you want from me?
I don't know. Those awkward silences where we're just looking at each other like, do you have anything to say?
I usually cut that.
We usually cut that, but not today.
I cut out of this.
Okay. So, yeah, Homer in Paris.
And the other one I liked was there was
Sure.
a French ambulance going by, and Homer heard it as going, homie, homie,
I didn't
homie."
love that.
liked it.
I didn't love it.
I didn't say I loved it. but I
No,
liked
you
it.
said another thing that I loved. Dan,
That thing that
I loved it.
I just wanted to mash. I
just wanted to
mash my potatoes in it.
Mashed my potatoes. Might be the name of the episode. I liked Homer is strangely competent at the party. He's whispering into Carl's ears like, oh, that's so-and-so from the Nuclear Regulatory Commissioner. And there was one where it was, here comes so-and-so, and you just hear Carl go away to Homer, and he's like, oh, I trust your wife is still dead.
Yeah, that was some
I like
funny
that.
stuff. Even though, yeah, Homer being the competent assistant, I was already just so
Right, I was kind of down on the
so
scene
down
already.
on the whole scene. But yeah, those that was funny.
Yeah.
There was another one that I can't remember the specifics, but there was another one after that where he whispered into Carl's ear, and it was pretty funny.
Yeah. But one that I abhorred, hated this moment in this episode was it was a woman comes up to Carl. We find out later that it's Carla Bruni,
I thought
Sarkozy's
that was
wife.
a separate thing. The Carla Bruni reference was something separate.
No, I think it was the same woman from this
All right.
party.
So then they're hinting that basically the sitting first lady was cheating on her husband, which
Correct.
is kind of below I could see Family Guy doing that, but this is The Simpsons. Don't insinuate that.
Apparently, the clips of this scene and also the other Sarkozy scene were very, very popular in France. So
yeah, I know.
There you go.
I feel like it's just not classy to fucking say shit about a sitting first lady like
well,
that.
I completely agree with you. I mean, you know,
I am old school. I would drown my children before letting a gay couple babysit them for 6 hours.
Jack's
That's
views do
old
not
school, right?
represent the views of this podcast or me personally. But no, she comes on to Carl very heavily, and he says, instead of, I think it was like, we need to find time to talk. My assistant will put something on. I want to make love to you right now. And he says, my assistant will do an arousing dance for your amusement.
First of all, just the whole setup to this is just weird. The fact
Yeah.
that like she wants to have sex and he
doesn't for some
I guess he
reason?
has a wife, Carl. I
have
don't know.
no idea.
Who knows?
We never know about Carl.
Why does he need Homer to do a sensual dance? Like none of this makes sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Like, why would you say I'm going to have my assistant do a sensual
There's
dance?
no inner logic to any of this fucking story.
No reason for that. And then we have to watch Homer do the sensual dance, which was
God.
terrible.
I was physically angry at Dan Castellaneta for being in a recording booth making the noises to the dance. And like he is not to blame, and I'm blaming him because I was just so mad at how lazy and stupid this was. And it was just there was like a sense of arrogance to it, which, you know, maybe we're guilty of the same thing when we do like 5 minutes of Hemus or whatever. But there was like an arrogance where they're just like, this is just like, we're going to do this, and it's because it's funny. It's funny for Homer to do this silly dance. It's Homer. It's silly dance. It's funny.
Frankly, I like that scene.
Sorry, Hemus. I didn't
Here
mean to.
I am.
Don't take that personally.
When you say my name, you summon me.
Sure.
I work by Beetlejuice rules, but only once. And you have to say my name backwards to make me leave.
Give me a second. Sue me?
Oh, no!
Is it sue me?
I don't know. I guess.
Doesn't seem right.
He must some I don't know.
Anyway.
Cut all this.
But no, that was terrible. Just watching Homer dance, and it just wasn't funny.
No,
it wasn't
not at all.
visually interesting. It wasn't visually funny.
And then Carl tells Homer, like, oh, we're going to need to stay indefinitely in France. So
What is Carl's
what the
job?
fuck are they doing in France? There's like some throwaway bullshit line where he's like, we can sell power to France and Milan. Like, how do you sell nuclear
he was
power
a-
to another
And I
country
thought Carl was
across
like
the
I
sea?
thought Carl was a sector supervisor, just making sure everybody was coming in
Yeah,
on time.
right. I have no idea. It was
episode's stupid.
It was not good.
And so was the episode we're covering.
Yeah. This podcast
This
episode is
podcast
terrible.
was stupid and sucks. And also,
Yeah. Pretty much.
I'm telling and not showing. So there's two more Flanders lines. They cut back to Flanders cooking dinner with Marge. There's two more Flanders lines that I felt were very Flanders. He goes, "What's next on the itinerary?"
Yes, that was cute.
Itinerary
Very
and
Flanders.
dinner.
Yep.
Portmanteau.
Yep,
Great.
I liked it.
And I also liked. So basically,
He's not thinking straight. That
yeah,
one.
Yeah. So there's some sexual tension, and they splash water on each other and make their shirts see through.
Right. And Flanders has the rippling chest.
He's a buff guy.
He's buff.
And
Stupid, sexy Flanders.
and they start leaning in for a kiss. They're like really just like into it, and
Yeah.
and Marge is like thinking, "Oh my God, what is this really happening?" And
Mm-hmm.
Flanders is going, "What's wrong with you? I know this is wrong. Maybe my judgment's swayed because I had that wine cooler last month." That's a great Flanders joke. Very
Yeah, I
simple.
like that a lot.
Very simple. Not much thought to it, but it just works.
Yeah, I liked it too. But I don't have that much to say about the whole Homer Marge Flanders flirting thing. I actually thought it worked pretty well, and it was probably some of the best stuff in the episode.
It worked well in the context of the scene, but that's the problem is you need a full episode to devote something as strong.
Right. Oh, it was very
Like,
rushed.
for having this is something we've come across a lot. It's a plot that they've never done before that makes total sense, and you wouldn't be surprised if they did it in season 2 because it's such an obvious plot. And how have they never done it before?
Right.
And they half-ass it and rush it and fuck it up. And this plot of what if Marge and Flanders had a sexual tension is such a great, ripe character-based story because it
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
Marge and Flanders would make a great couple.
Yeah.
They both like genuinely good people. They have a lot of the same. They even did fucking Streetcar together.
You're right. Oh,
yeah.
that's true. I actually forgot about
Yeah.
that.
So it's such an easy plot to play with, and it's also very strong character conflict because they're both such good people. That Flanders is the least likely person you would think would ever cheat on on another man, cuckold another man's wife.
Right, yeah.
But if he's that interested in Marge, you have to that
Well-
character conflict of I really like this woman and we
Yeah.
make sense together, but morally it's wrong.
And he's a
That's
widower. Obviously, he's lonely.
It's great storytelling, and they
Yeah.
basically it's just for this scene and a half.
It's just jammed in.
There's nothing it's matched in. There's nothing.
is.
There's nothing ahead of it to set it up because they wasted all the time with the calendar shit. And
Yeah.
then we'll get into this in a minute, but they don't wrap it up really in any satisfying way whatsoever. It's a real shame. It's just it reminded me of Scrubs where they did like one episode where JD and Carla kiss, and it's just like
Oh, yeah.
they did it because you do 6-7 seasons, and it's
Right.
like
There's only so many pairings you can
exactly, but it also doesn't make any sense because Carla's very happy with Turk, and this
Yeah.
is a big deal. And
Doesn't make any
and if you're
sense.
gonna kiss, then there's probably gonna be lasting repercussions. And instead, of just like we did it. Next episode,
Yeah.
what's the janitor up to? And it's just like so. That's what this reminded me of.
Yeah, I agree. I only have a couple more notes because we're getting the clock's running out.
And the Homer being overworked storyline works perfect for this because it gives, again, Flanders is a lonely widow. This gives Marge justification of why now? Why now are you interested in cheating on Homer? Because
Right.
Homer's overworked, which makes me that much more upset that this assistant job was such a also fucking waste.
Yeah,
Because-
like there's a decent episode that starts to come out at the very end.
Yeah,
I would
and it's
say.
a
just-
shame.
it's not the episode that was set up in the first act
Exactly,
at
it's
all.
a shame because it just. That episode can't exist because there was like the tumor of the episode we got was drowning it out.
Agreed. I just want to really quickly wrap up both plot lines.
Yeah.
The first one, the Homer plot line, it wraps up with Homer blackmailing Carl with the knowledge that it was Carla Bruni or whatever
Yeah.
her name
Oh,
was,
God.
so that he can get his way.
God.
So the payoff of Homer's storyline is blackmail your boss
Yeah.
to get what you want,
Yeah.
which terrific.
Which again, if this assistant job had some different kind of substance to it, maybe
Yeah.
that could tie into it. Look, if you give me if you put your entire life in my hands, this is the repercussions. But that
Yeah.
wasn't there at all.
Not at all. And Flanders and Marge just kind of they realize what they're doing. They see a photo of Homer and Marge on their wedding day, and they kind of back away as Homer is pulling into the driveway. And I like there was a line, he says, "My wife and my worst friend."
Yeah.
That was pretty
And
good.
then Homer is about to accuse them of something and then does it, and the episode kind of ends. He's just like, yeah, it's nice to see you guys.
Yeah, and the episode ends with them getting it on.
And that's really, again, troublesome because this could have been such a great episode. And look, if this was real life, it kind of makes sense. You're interested in your friend's wife. There's some sexual tension. You're about to kiss or something, and then you realize this isn't right to do. Let's
Right.
not do this.
Of course.
And that I'm sure that happens every day to somebody, but that's not drama. That's something you're not going to go out of your way to watch because that's not
Right.
that's real life, but it's not dramatized real life. It's drama.
Drama. Yeah.
But yeah, so like,
and here it was cop.
so my point is, if you're doing character based, this ending works, but it's a really unsatisfying, shitty story ending.
Yeah.
And-
No, it was not.
And maybe, and again, we want character over plot, but you need to. There was, like I said, the rest of the bad episode drowned out and didn't let this grow into the thing that maybe that ending could have worked.
Right. So we're running out of time on our timer, but let's try and rank this episode real quick, Jack.
Oh, I thought we were gonna.
We want to wait until after the timer runs out to the
Yeah,
ranking.
we-
All right, then since we do have 36 seconds left on the clock.
You want us to? We can start ranking it. I mean,
No, that's fine. There was a line that I did want to mention that I did kind of like, where Bart and Lisa, the reason that Marge and Flanders were alone is Rod and Todd, Flanders was punishing them, and Bart and Lisa snuck out. Lisa said, "I'm going to Janie's for a party," and Bart said, "I'm going to the house next door to Janie's for a stink bomb party." No connection.
Yeah.
I kind of like that. That was
fine.
funny.
Yeah, that was fine. So this is awkward.
Should we talk about your dick more? Jeez.
God,
Podcast
it's heavy. Like my legs hurt from carrying it around all the
Heavy
time.
is the back that carries the dick.
And that's our show. That's our time.
Nuzzle, neck, with pleasure.
Let me try. Lick eyes. I'll try again. Spank hair. What's a whisper into ass? Oh, this game sucks.
All right, so time is up on our timer. So now it is time to rank this episode. We're going to do that on the Hippo scale, looking at the humor, the integrity, the production values, and the originality. So on a 0 to 5 scale for each, Jack, put 2 minutes on a new clock, I guess.
I mean,
Yeah, whatever.
I do 1 clock a day.
All right. Jack's a one clack kind of man. So here we go. 1 clock. I said clack.
I know. I just wanted to point it out.
All right. Hello, I'm Clack.
Oh no.
Which way to the bus stop? It's not even a different voice. That's just me, but louder. All right, so here we go. The Devil That Wears Nada from season 21. Humor, 0 to 5. Jack, what are we thinking?
There were a couple of jokes I liked.
I had some chuckles, and I pointed out all of them in this episode.
1? Is that too high? 0.5?
No, I was thinking, well, 0.5 is pretty
I
bad.
can't remember any jokes I liked. I mean, I mentioned like 2.
There
but
were
I didn't
moments
even
I
look.
liked.
Mo is the gargoyle. I'm gonna go 1.
Yeah, one seems right. Like I did not like this episode. I didn't hate it though. Like I never want to watch it again.
Right.
But I wouldn't if I was torturing someone, I wouldn't put this one on. And I torture quite a
I
great
love
deal
the
of
idea
people.
that if you, for some reason, are torturing someone,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming in like a malevolent way, not like a Jack
course.
Bauer trying to save the world kind of way.
Right.
I find like you have like the DVD library, like, how to torture this.
Devil wears nada.
What are you turning to Mark Hamill?
Yes. Batman.
Fair enough.
All right, we can cut stuff now, right?
Nope, leaving it
Nope,
in.
all right, the integrity of this episode, 0 to 5. What do you got?
I was really into Flanders' integrity until that whole anti-gay thing. Homer is not Homer. Homer is a competent assistant in this.
Right. Carl is whatever's fuck's going on with Carl. I don't know why he would pick Homer. He knows he's a moron.
The Marge Flanders stuff does make sense from a character point of view. Marge's reaction to the calendar is not anti-character. It just wasn't supported by anything. That's more storytelling problems. 2.5.
2.5 seems high. I'm kind of leaning towards a 1.5. I think
I'll say this. I also take into account big emotional beats in the integrity. Like if an episode really moves me, if there's like a really emotionally complex thing going on that's not exactly story,
Yeah.
I'll give integrity points. And I think they dropped the ball, maybe because they just ran out of time, but they dropped the ball with Marge and Flanders' sexual tension. Like there should have been more weight to that. So I'm going to dock it for that as well.
Yeah, I'm going to dock it. I mean, I didn't like that Skinner and Chalmers scene really bothered me. So that's a big chunk of what I'm
I'm going to
going
go
down.
1.5.
All right, I'm 1.5 too. Production values.
We loved a lot of the Marge stuff,
Yeah.
the Marge French stuff.
This will probably be the highest, and I don't know how high I'm going to actually go. But there were a lot of things I did like in this episode as far as animation.
Yeah, I liked the inhaling, his snoring, inhaling into Marge's mouth. The
Sexy Marge was very well animated.
Carl and the boobs. Yeah, Marge looked good. Flanders looked very
Flanders
handsome.
was looking nice.
Yeah,
Those rippling
3.5.
I
could go 3.
I'm going to go 3. No, you stay 3.5.
Okay.
We shouldn't have the same rankings. People can't tell us apart as it is.
Is that why, like, Siskel was always telling Ebert, like, you keep that thumb down?
And yeah, it was. And they're both dead. The originality of the episode.
That's why?
Yeah. Because I couldn't keep their thumbs down.
Maybe we should agree more so we're not dead in 25
Well,
years.
I don't know.
I don't want to be doing worst episode ever with Roper.
I actually liked Ebert and Roper. They had a good dynamic.
He's fine.
All right. Richard Roper, if you're listening, you're welcome to join us anytime.
That'd be great. You can do thumbs up, thumbs down. We'll do hippo.
Perfect. And finally, the originality of the episode, a 0 to 5 scale. What are you thinking, Jack?
Again, great idea for a story. Having
A squandered premise.
Yeah, having Marge and Flanders have sexual tension, great idea for a story. Even the Marge calendar thing hadn't quite been done, although large Marge, if that was what they were doing. Homer the assistant has completely been done.
Yeah.
Storytelling and structure of the story was a fucking disaster.
Terrible.
Fucking
Terrible,
disaster.
terrible.
0.5.
Ooh, way low. I'm going to say 1.5.
0.5.
Because I want to disagree with you.
Maybe I might go up to 1 again because the Marge. I really like the idea of Marge and Flanders going somewhere, but it didn't. 0.5.
Okay.
I said at the top of this episode, I really, really did not like this episode. I found it so immensely pointless, and that's what I didn't like about it, how pointless it was. And I think this is the category to fucking take it down a notch. 0.5.
All right, so we've crunched the numbers, and The Devil Wears Nada from season 21 has ranked as a slightly better episode than Little Big Girl and a slightly worse episode than Homer and Ned's Hail Mary Pass, which those are not two bad episodes. That puts it at number 20 on our current list, and I think that's a fair
We should
spot
hang
for
up
it.
a sign in front of We Studios that says 2 bad episodes with crude drawings of those.
We should do that.
Should we?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
It's my apartment. I don't really
No,
want
you're going to have to look at that every day, and I'm going to use your bed sheet to do it. Get me the paint.
to. Okay.
That is it for this episode of Worst Episode Ever. If you've enjoyed this different format, you should check out 90s Percentile.
Oh, we didn't do
That's
what
our
have
other
we
show.
learned.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. That's something we do at 90s Percentile.
90s percentile, when the timer runs out, we do
Yes.
it very quick. What have we learned before we do this part of the episode?
Right.
So I learned that there's a nude podcast. What was it? A website?
A
daily
news
magazine?
nude podcast magazine.
Yeah, and I'm in it.
Yep. And yes, you are. And I learned that Freet is into ASMR.
But not as the listener.
No,
As
he
the-
just
as
he
the doer.
likes to read it. And I came in just to say that.
Talk in third person.
Hello.
All right. Back to the housekeeping.
Yes. So if you have an episode that you'd like to suggest for Worst Episode Ever, you can do that on our website, which is weepodcast.com. That's weepodcast.com. And while you're there, click through our Amazon links, amazon.weepodcast.com. Check to our Facebook, our Twitter at Worst Episode Pod, our subreddit where you can join the conversation on this episode, and our sync points and everything else. And, of course, you can get 90s Percentile there as well. Mm-hmm. And you should, because we've gotten a lot of feedback. People like 90s Percentile.
Mm-hmm. Also, this is a few weeks late, I'm guessing, by the time this comes out. But a good friend of the show, Harry, ended his epic run of Harry
yes.
Says Yes. He did 100 episodes and called it quits.
Yes.
And he did a 2-part finale. Not sure, I haven't listened to it yet, which part we're in, but we recorded a little message for him.
Yeah, there's a little
So
something from us in
if
there.
if
So
for whatever reason, if you really don't like listening to Harry, but you'll listen to anything
if you're
we
a
do.
Wii completist, check out the last episode of Harry
a Wii
Says
completist.
Yes.
There you go. If you want that 100% completion rank at the end of Worst Episode Ever,
You get 100
which we're gonna
Wii-Bucks.
do.
Yeah, oh
when
yeah.
when we end the podcast, we're just gonna run like a bunch of stats like
You'll
Grand Theft
see.
Auto.
It's going to be great. So, yeah, listen to that. And if you're in the Brooklyn area, Woohoo Classic Simpsons Trivia is the first Thursday of every month. So check that out, Berry Park in Brooklyn. And there are other trivia nights in your area all around the world. That's not true. All around the country and Canada.
That's
There's
international.
Toronto, Chicago, Detroit.
international.
There's a couple other ones. Just Google it for more information.
None in Syria that we know of.
That we know of. At least not affiliated with Woohoo Classic Simpsons Trivia.
And if there is one going on in Syria, you might want to get your priorities straight.
All right, guys, so that is it for this episode of Worst Episode Ever. We're going to be back next week. We're going to be doing an episode from season 18 that is called 24 Minutes.
Ooh,
I
I know what
wonder
that's about.
if it is 24 minutes long. Is that what it's about? It's just the runtime?
That was their new episode naming format.
They just name it by the runtime.
They're all the same.
All right. So that's it for this episode ever. This episode ever?
Yeah, sure.
Whatever. We're not cutting anything. So we didn't cut anything, and that's how we're ending the show. Don't cut any of this, Jack.
I won't.
All right.
Maybe that racist stuff.
No, cut that. There was no racist stuff.
Oakley dokley, but I'm warning you, you're gonna see America's #1 dishwashing crew.
I wash and I dry.
Then I give them the squeak test, and into the dishwasher they go.